Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. Lordy, lordy, I'm moving right along. This will be series number 251. 251. On this book, Charles Berlitz, Doomsday, 1999. Mount St. Helens was just an early warning. The author of a 10 million copy bestseller, Bermuda Triangle, explores the frightening facts that point to the end of the world. I've been going over a lot of books on a lot of topics. So I thought it was time to revisit the end of the world because there's all kinds of crazy things going on in the news. Current events. Today is February 6th, 2019. And I've got to tell you, they've been dumping tons of chemicals in the sky. I'll be making a video on that right away. I didn't do one for January, but I have plenty of videos of them dumping tons of chemicals. 2019, they have been busy, let me tell you. It can't bode well for we people. So I was looking at this book and some other books and some other activities that's just too much to believe. So let's look at some of that stuff before I read from this book. I watch No More News and many other videos and other speakers and alternate news people and websites, and a lot of the stuff I watch, everybody knows. Alex Jones, Richie from Boston, and so many others, Lisa Haven, Dane Wigington, geoengineeringwatch.org, Deborah Traveris, fires in California. Anyways, it is bizarre what's going on. One of the things that's so bizarre, now let me ask people a question. Is the United States of America a Christian nation? A religious nation, a family-oriented value nation, desiring family values and success of the children, going to college, getting jobs and safety and all that? Are we the leader in the world? And of course, if you've been paying attention, the answer is no. It seems somebody has taken over the country. And also part of prophecy, the end times, details some of the things that are going to happen. And apparently it is a seriously anti-Christian effort. But then again, we are entering the age of Aquarius. We're leaving the constellation of Pisces, which started about 2,000 years ago. And apparently there's 12 astrological signs. We all know them. Leo, Scorpio, Pisces, Aquarius. Anyway, so we're entering the age of Aquarius. So it's a new age. No doubt about that, astrologically speaking. But do those astrological signs in the constellations have anything to do with the philosophical or storyline of planet Earth? Is it like some kind of script, some kind of play? And we endure 2,000 years. Apparently with the Taurus, Leo the lion or whatever, and then you had the bull, and then Aries the ram, etc. And Jesus being born 2,000 years ago, ironically, the symbol is the fish, Pisces. And now we're entering the age of Aquarius, the water bearer. So with each age, Is there some kind of storyline that follows with that age for 2,000 years? Like some people are Aquarius, like me. Some people are Scorpios or Libras. And they'll tell you all about themselves because that's the sign they were born into. So does the planet have a sign? The planet have a sign? That apparently it changes signs every 2,160 years, whatever, a total of 26,000 years, where the north pole of the planet wobbles like this. Not a good wobble. Anyway, so for a period of time it might point this way, and then slowly it'll point this way, and then slowly it'll point this way, and then this way, all the way around in a circle. Precession is what they call it. And a lot of people know what this is. But for those who don't, I just go the extra mile that the North Pole has a wobble. And the complete wobble takes 26,000 years. It spins on its axis in one position of the wobble for 2,000 years. Then it'll spin here. So it takes about 2,000 years for it to move from this position to this position to this position, and so forth, all the way around the wobble. 2,160 years. So we're in this new wobble, the age of Aquarius, which is a new age. And what does it have to do with Christianity? Is it some people, I guess, trying to bring about this new age? You can even watch a lot of people speaking on YouTube videos, or channelers, or psychics, people into astrology, the Kabbalah, and all this other progressive and liberal philosophies, saying that Christianity is no longer applicable, no longer needed. So what does prophecy say? Prophecy says there's supposed to be an Antichrist coming. And who would this Antichrist be? Well, he'd be Antichrist. He would be against Christ, trying to destroy the religion of Christianity. And it looks like they're doing a good job. Then the question is, what would replace it? What would be an Antichrist? So I suspect if most people want to think about it, the Antichrist, obviously, the anti-Jesus would have been Satan, who even took Jesus to the top of the mountain and said, if you bend your knee to me, I will give you this whole planet. It's in the Bible. And Jesus said, no. This is not the world that I am from. In my Father's world there are many mansions. So apparently there is another world, another dimension, heaven. And for the 1/3 of the angels, as per the Bible, who were cast out of heaven, they were cast into the underworld. Some people call it hell, Hades, whatever. Another dimension, a lower dimension. Heaven would be a higher dimension. And here we are in maybe an interdimension. So they're desiring to bring us a new religion. Apparently in the United States they passed some kind of laws in secret, not too long ago, called Noahide laws, making it the religious law of the land. I know what you're thinking. Rick, you're kidding. That can't be. What kind of evidence do you have? Go look this up. So in Israel, well, I should say even worldwide, they have a Jewish Congress for the Jews worldwide, even before they acquired their own land after being landless or homeless or nationless, whatever you want to call it, for 2,000 years. They still had a government body called the Sanhedrin that you see on this page. Anyways, 2,000 years ago, it was the Sanhedrin that got together and I guess declared that Jesus was a heresy, advocating or worshiping a false god, that he was a false god, that he really wasn't the Son of God. That's what they accused him of. And they crucified him. So they're back. The Sanhedrin's back. So anyways, they call on President Trump to uphold the 7 Noahide laws. I learned this many years ago, and apparently it's becoming a hot topic, especially on No More News, and even with Alex Jones, one of his speakers, presenters. So what are these Noahide laws? Well, apparently one of the components of it is it would be illegal to commit heresy. Heresy would be a crime, and what is heresy? That would be believing in a false god. And if the Sanhedrin had Jesus Christ crucified 2,000 years ago, and they've always been behind the governmental body behind the Jewish religion, and they're calling on President Trump to uphold the Noahide laws that were passed in secret in the United States. So apparently even the United States Constitution was suspended back in 1933 when the United States went bankrupt. Interestingly enough, that would have been after World War I and prior to World War II. And in 1913, the Jewish Illuminati Zionist elite, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, etc., conspired to take over control of the USA money supply, creating the Federal Reserve, which is privately owned and operated. And they have the same kind of organizations in countries all over the world where they control the banking systems of all those countries. They own and operate them. And apparently, I was just listening to a Dane Wigington video, and he was talking to somebody else on a current video. And apparently, with the Pentagon in the United States, maybe $20–30 trillion in the last 40 years or so has been missing, added all up, from the Pentagon. What are they doing with that 30, 20, 35, whatever, trillion dollars? And a massive amount of money. And of course, we have plans for a new world order and facilities being built underground for some people to survive some kind of devastating effect. And the Sanhedrin, the Jewish congressional body, calling on President Trump to uphold the 7 Noahide laws, which is an anti-Christian thing. So all the people who are Christians would be considered heretics. And apparently the way to punish them is by beheading. It's too much to believe. So I just thought I'd look at these documents for a second. I got to go over them and make a video. But you can see Israel is a leading component to this whole story, no matter what anybody wants to tell you. Israel lobby behind Pentagon war plans against Iran. Here's another one here. I need to talk about all of these. Why the United States, United Kingdom, and the European Union and Israel hate Syria. So I don't know. I'm from the United States. I don't hate Syria. I don't think people in the UK hate Syria. I don't think the European Union hates Syria. But when you get these news pieces, they want everybody to believe that Syria is demonized. They're demonizing Syria. And of course, they're demonizing Iran. And they're demonizing Venezuela. And demonizing the Christians, being haters if they don't go along with transgenderism. Here's another one. I just thought I'd look at these. I've been reorganizing some of these documents. War without end. War without end. Waking times. So we're talking about this. Doomsday, 1999. The end of the world. U.S. currently fighting 74 different wars. Global research. So who controls the United States? Who had the Noahide laws passed in secret? Who wanted the President Trump to start enforcing them? Russia moves to label U.S. as a plutocracy, warns of war. The European Union Times. So somebody's setting the United States up for a world war that probably we are destined to lose, planned to lose. Rothschilds wants Iran banks. Again, we see these familiar names. The Illuminati Zionist leaders who brought about the state of Israel. They want the Iranian banks. Hang the bankers, I guess .com or something. And mainstream media stories about Israel pushing the United States into war. Plethora of evidence here. The Jewish temple prophecy clips. You can go look up all this stuff. As you can see, I've looked it all up. So there's plenty of clips for you to look up to verify the things I'm about to say. Things I am saying. The Balfour Declaration. So during World War I, they made an agreement that if the world's Jewish people helped Britain win the war that it was losing with Germany, then the Palestinian land was promised to the Jews to create the state of Israel, having everything to do with the Noahide laws and the end of the world. Jewish temple prophecies, and apparently we now have a Donald Trump coin with his head on it and the King Solomon's temple. And I guess I found out, listening to some of my commenters and doing more research, apparently Donald Trump belongs to some kind of organization. Here's one of the medals or symbols they have. So you can recognize all this stuff. I guess what he belonged to, according to this website, was Donald Trump was knighted into the Dragon Knights of the Round Table. Dragon Knighted of the Round Table, Donald Trump. And I showed their badge there. And here's the Sanhedrin. So you can see I do a lot of research. The religious government body who was responsible for having Jesus crucified. These people back then, 2,000 years ago, rejected Jesus. And today they're calling on Trump to enforce Noahide laws. And that means everybody who believes in Jesus would be accused of being a heresy, punishable by beheading. Sanhedrin had Jesus crucified. Same people. I had to go check it out to get the right names in the right places. House resolution introduced rejecting anti-Israel and anti-Semitic sentiment. So they need to pass laws that you can't speak ill or negatively about Jews or Israel or this global world order and all these things. They're passing laws, and this includes the Noahide laws. And we know that they got the state of Israel by deception with Arthur Balfour during World War I. And apparently it says here that Trump and Putin's are agents of the Chabad Lubavitch, a leading Rabbinic Jewish organization. So apparently this information says that Trump and Putin, and probably most of the political leaders, are under the control of organizations like the Happy-Go-Lucky Jewish group that connects Trump and Putin, like it says on this document. Trump meets with the Chabad rabbis in the Oval Office. So anybody who wants to say this is all not connected, it just wants to live in a cave and doesn't want to own up and fess up to what's really happening. Big, how many pages here? 29 pages I printed out. Trump and Putin, agents of Chabad Lubavitch. Trump and Putin's Lubavitch assigned roles. So all this is what's behind the New World Order, Global World Order. The end of the world as we know it. Probably a whole lot of death. And they're serious, apparently. There's many sources here. You can see I've done all the homework. Donald Trump, Chabad Lubavitch, the oligarchs, all these wealthy elites. How many pages I got here? 13 pages. So this is a video all by itself looking at these documents. And you can see this other one here. The Politico, happy-go-lucky Jewish group controlling, think about this, controlling Russia and the United States, and of course Britain and France and Germany and all these other countries in Europe and Asia and Africa and North America, Central America, and South America. And I know what you're saying, Rick, that can't be. That's just too crazy. I've been making videos for a long time. Since 2013 September, and this was video number 12, big thick book on 911 synthetic terror, involving all these people you see with all these symbols. Even Bin Laden on the bottom here by my finger, Al-Qaeda, they were created by the CIA, some kind of terrorist group to help fight the Russians when the Russians were occupying or working over there in Afghanistan. So what they do is they create these adversaries, these conflicts. So Al-Qaeda, created by the CIA, the United States, the Pentagon, controlled by Israel, Britain, and all the other countries, and the U.S. And so the people, the citizens worldwide, are satisfied that there's a legitimate thing going on, and not make uproars about it or protest. So they make these things seem like a reality, like the conflict between the United States and Russia, the Cold War. But yet they control Russia, especially after 1917 when they invaded Russia, not a revolution if you want to understand the truth. After World War I, and Russia was probably caught off guard and weakened. I mean, who would have ever thought that all those countries that won World War I would be behind the Jewish Bolshevik elite and taking trains and planes and espionage and getting into Russia, abducting the Tsar and his family and murdering them all, taking over the country, putting up an iron wall for almost 20 years and slaughtering 100 million people. Then during World War II, they even annexed all those countries, including half of Germany and Serbia and all those countries, and gave Russia more territories than they put up the Iron Wall we're all familiar with. Did you know that? So series number 12 here, Webster, Grip, and Tarpley, 911 Synthetic Terror. So everything from World War I, World War II, so much more, 911, it's all synthetic terror. And this book mentions involvement of the Israeli intelligence service, Mossad, and the Zionist elite Jewish people, the banksters, all the people, apparently also behind the secret passage of the Noahide laws, anti-Christians. I guess, if you want to sum it up, all members of the synagogue of Satan, as it says in the Bible, especially in Revelation 2.9 and 3.9, Jews who call themselves Jews but are not, but are of the synagogue of Satan. Even when Jesus overturned the money changers' tables in the New Testament in several places, he said, "Ye are of your father, the serpent, Satan." So if you wanted to know what's going on, and then if you talk to Nancy Leader from Zeta Talk, the channeler, and the Palladians or the Zetas are coming, and there's supposed to be a pole shift, and there's safe places to go, all kinds of fear-mongering, and talking about doomsday. So you got all these channelers. I've gone over many book reviews on them. This is series 143. I'll be continuing to go over channeling. Then, of course, many years ago, Eustace Mullins, a well-respected journalist in Washington, D.C., Secrets of the Federal Reserve. He tells all. I made a video on this book, series 15. Another one, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, John Perkins. I made a video or two on this book, series number 7. How these rich elites, Zionists, Rockefellers, all these people I've been showing you behind the CIA, the other organizations, Mossad, Pentagon, presidency, senators, representatives, all belonging to these secret societies, were convincing leaders all over the world to borrow money they couldn't pay back so they could foreclose on the world. Bankruptcy. And of course, we all know a lot of presidents all over the world were assassinated. So the presidents that were getting in the way were assassinated, and the countries were taken over in a hostile way, like what they're doing right now to Venezuela, which is under serious United States embargo, and that's causing the country with more gold than any other country in the mountains there, and in their vaults too, and more oil than any other country in the world, Venezuela. The people are starving because of their country is being blockaded from receiving any supplies, money, whatever. So don't believe what you hear in the news. It's not the people of Venezuela. It's just the elites don't have control of it. And also the 20, 30 trillion missing from the Pentagon that Dane Wigington was even talking about in a video today. They've been building underground bases, preparing for something. So think about it. Doomsday. Underground tunnels. Doomsday. Underground tunnels. Doomsday. You get it? And of course, they control most of the countries all over the world. They have hundreds of U.S. bases all over the world. So of course, they had to take 20 or 30 trillion out of the Pentagon budget to create this gigantic plan, conspiracy, and not a conspiracy theory, but a real conspiracy to bring about the global world order. All this stuff. This is series number 31 in my series. And then I have all these microwave transmitters all over the world. The ultimate weapon of the conspiracy. Series number 32. So they have all these gigantic 40-acre transmitter sites, using part of Nikola Tesla's technologies. And they can send huge beams of energy anywhere they want. They can bounce off these pulses off the earth and cause earthquakes and enhance or create forest fires and radiate energies over whole cities or states and make the people go mad. They have all these weapons. And apparently they're exacerbating the situation. Apparently installing all those cell phone towers, microwave transmitters every couple miles all over the country. 5G. You wouldn't put your infant in a microwave oven, would you? Or your little poodle or chihuahua or whatever, would you? Or hold the on-off switch and stick your head in there and turn it on, would you? Well, that's what they're doing. Apparently that one gentleman, what's his name, from South Africa, who's involved in launching rockets, apparently he got the contract to put 20,000 satellites in orbit to transmit 5G. You don't think the world's going to be a microwave oven soon? And of course they built underground bases, and they bankrupt all the countries all over the world, and they have been putting toxins and poisons in our water and our food and taking over the money. And you have Constance Coombe, a planned deception, the staging of a New Age Messiah, Noahide laws, fulfillment of prophecy, Antichrist. Another one I went over is Psychic Warrior. So apparently they are into the occult. They do train people to go into trances and leave their body. This is series number 10, I believe. I made videos on this book. This book, YouTube actually took down. Not to make another video. Maybe they won't take the second one down for whatever reason, whatever I said in the first one. But World Revolution, the plot against civilization. Nestor Webster. 1921. And of course, this propaganda about UFOs and aliens and all these advanced technologies the government has. So they really have people believing the Galactic Federation is here to save us. They're having arrest warrants issued with the court systems of America, a lot of sealed indictments, and they're going to take all these people down with the assistance, thank you very much, of the aliens from space. Are you buying it? I believe they have the technologies. Series 16. Another one by Eustace Mullins, Murder by Injection. So during the 1900s, the Rockefellers and everybody else were taking over the medical establishment, the pharmaceutical establishment, the educational establishments, the economic establishments, and the story of the medical conspiracy against America. Then you got Dion Fortune writing a book, Psychic Self-Defense. Why do we need psychic self-defense? Series 14. Leonard Cole writes a book. They're dumping flus and viruses and bacteria into the subways in New York, parking ships off the coast of California with gigantic fans and prevailing winds, and testing these germ warfare over the populated areas of America. Apparently they have a treaty. You can't test these germ warfare on other countries, but you can test it on your own people. Series 18. And you got a big, thick, encyclopedia thick book here. Emerging Viruses, AIDS and Ebola, Leonard Horowitz. Well-known book. You can go listen to all these people's videos on YouTube and websites and plenty of material about all this. Series number 17. So a lot of these books were, these books were read and videos were created early in my video making career here, starting in 2013 September. After reading all these books and doing research since 2005, almost 10 years. So Leonard Horowitz tells all. These guys created AIDS in laboratories and tested it in LA and New York and Africa. Thank you very much. They have the weapons. They have the underground facilities. Another one by Constance Coombe. The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow. This occult organization. Anti-Christian groups. The New Age movement and the coming age of barbarism. Now you know. Series 40. And apparently back in Report from Iron Mountain. You can find a copy of this free online. But apparently back in Report from Iron Mountain on the possibility and desirability of peace. So the problem was they didn't think they could keep the people in line, especially if the people woke up, if they didn't have a threat of war. And with the use of nuclear weapons in Japan at the end of World War II, they kind of thought that the citizens of the planet would think that World War could never happen. So then you might have people paying attention to what the government was doing, like maybe stealing 30, 40 trillion from the Pentagon. So they came up with the book, Report from Iron Mountain, to create a bunch of other fears, to preoccupy the people of the world, especially in the United States. Some of those solutions were terrorism, environmental destruction, climate change, and so much more. Different kinds of threats, so that the people would still be looking to the politicians to solve all the problems. These people who are robbing us blind, trying to create this global world order while they're installing all these advanced technologies to enslave us. And what are they really worried about? Report from Iron Mountain was Series 28. Another one, Series 35, The Population Bomb. These books are published in 65 and 67 and 68 and 72. So they had these big concerns after World War II. And they're the ones who created the hippie age. And in Europe, they called it festivals. And bringing all kinds of drugs into the United States. They were distracting all of us with a huge party, worldwide, drugs, pot, LSD, booze, everything. And they planned on taking over the world and creating a situation like the Hunger Games movie, and it looks like they're getting close to it. FEMA camps and everything. Advanced microwave technologies, censoring us, monitoring us, facial recognition, microchipping children, all underway. Testing all their software and hardware, having all kinds of exercises that we've all seen, like Jade Helm 15. Another one on to the limits of growth. Look what it says here on the bottom. A report of the Club of Rome's project on the predicament of mankind. So they think there's a predicament, too many of us. With all this stuff going on, if I keep stacking them up, it's going to start getting in the picture. The limits to growth. Stacks over a foot tall here. Well, let me keep going. And I got another book here, John White on the pole shift. Back in, what year was this? Series number 139. I've been at this for a while. So, a book written on pole shift by, that would be in 1980. These people have been busy for a long time, continuing the propaganda nonstop. 1980. It's almost 2020. That would be 40 years of these threats. A pole shift. Climate change. Terrorism. Sustainability. Sound familiar? And another book written by a well-known Jewish author, PhD, Henry Mackau in Canada. He clearly says it what it's all about. Illuminati, the cult that hijacked the world. And look at that on his book. I mean, this guy must know what he's talking about. He's a PhD. There's the all-seeing eye on the back of the dollar bill, the six-pointed star on the Israeli flag, the five-pointed star inverted, the symbol for Satan, the devil. All on this PhD Jewish person, author in Canada, who's written a couple books. And you can go check out his website or listen to him speak to many people on all his different lectures and interviews. So with all that said, I'm going to read from this book. And when I read from this book, just consider all these books that are under it. And this is only 5, 6, 7, 20 books maybe out of the 250 that I've been making videos on, trying to find out WTH, what the heck is going on. And it would be nice if I could read the entire book, but I can't. Doing book reviews, so I usually read a few pages and talk about the material and see how it integrates with all the other things I've been researching and the plans for a global world order and all the propaganda we've been dealing with for the past 20 years quite intensely, even prior to the year 2000, if you remember. They said all the computers were going to crash and everybody was making preparations. And I think it was 1982 there was supposed to be an alignment of all the planets opposite the sun, opposite Earth, and they said surely the Earth is going to start vibrating in earthquakes. 2012, the Mayan calendar. 2010 or 11, planet or comet Elenon, and so much more. They do it every year, boom, 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 while they continue to install advanced technologies, even apparently now launching the microwave transmitter satellites, 20,000 or more of them, using the huge corporations and the wealthy elite, Raytheon, Rand Corporation, and so many others, with these satanic symbols as their logos. You can't make this stuff up, but you can look it up. It says on the back of this book, massive earthquakes, poisoned air, menace from the cosmos, nuclear holocaust, Modern science and ancient prophecy now agree. The countdown to doom has begun. Then, in more than one cataclysm occurrence could bring the end. So what's the chances of all these things happening at once? I guess it's actually a good chance if they have the advanced technologies and they can fool us like they've been fooling us even during 9/11. Some guys in a cave did not do it. They did it so they could advance Israel's agenda for a greater Israel. Look up the maps to fulfill ancient prophecy from the Iraqi Euphrates River, which is over by Russia, down into the Egyptian Nile, the ancient Judaic or Kingdom of Judea kingdom lines. Why would God have dispersed the people, called the diaspora for 2,000 years, denying them a homeland for 2,000 years? And while they were dispersed from country to country and location to location, they were run out of different countries. Like around 1600, they were entirely banned from all over Europe. I think Spain banned the exiled the Jews in 1500. In 1600, they were banished from England and from Italy and from all the other countries, and they had fled to Holland, Denmark, Poland, Russia. So after they executed and had revolutions in Britain and France, executing the French king and the British king, they took over the governments like they did in 1913, taking over the USA money supply, and having their puppet president, Woodrow Wilson, deceiving the United States into World War I, and then Roosevelt deceiving the United States into World War II, deceiving us with 9/11. So if they've done everything I just said, what do you want to bet? They're going to fulfill their plans. These people are not fooling. Remember, they've taken 30, 40 trillion out of the United States Pentagon. And they control the other countries' money systems all over the world. So they pretty much, at this point in time, control the world. At the beginning of the age of Aquarius, a new age. Coincidence, you think? Fulfillment of biblical prophecy? Coincidence, you think? Do you really think the world's running out of water and oil and food and oxygen, too much CO2, and a comet's coming or a planet's coming, and the planet's going to have a pole shift, etc., etc.? They're good at their propaganda. And who was it that said, the word is mightier than the sword? So the propaganda is mightier than the sword. And I've been reading a book by that guy. Been reading this book for the last couple days. I'm going to make a video on it. The Coming Race. The Coming Race. So what is this coming race? Apparently, this guy, Edward Bulwer Lytton, back in 1871, an elite person in Europe, wrote this book, wrote many books, but this one in particular, The Coming Race. Apparently they went down into the earth and they discovered these advanced humanoids. They had some slight differences. The coming race, a coming new race to dominate the planet. All right, it says here on the back of this book, a shift in the Earth's magnetic poles sends the oceans into chaos. What year did I say this book was written? So I think we just have to have continuous conversations on these topics. This is 1981. So from the past 100 years, they've been putting out plenty of this propaganda in preparations for a global world order. And I realize that's part of the problem people have. A lot of people are myopic, short-term view of things, reality. Don't look at the long picture. Taking over banking systems of nations and deceiving them with all the media, newspaper, TV, radio, billboards, magazines, and drugs and liquor and so much more. 1981. Continuing the back of the book. So I guess the pole shift will send the oceans into chaos. You've seen the movies, you've seen all the other stuff. And by the way, if you pay attention to a lot of the people making videos on YouTube, you will continually seeing a lot of these people supposed to be alternate news and truth seekers and truth tellers saying that, you know, it's really true. We're past the stage of saving planet Earth. The people just aren't aware. Global warming or global cooling or climate change, it's imminent. It's going to destroy the whole planet unless we react with emergency actions. We have to force all the people to stop using fuels and eat less food and live in a few square feet like cages, like the Hunger Games movies, so we can save them. If you just pay attention, they're all starting to agree. So who is really in on this big deception? Apparently a whole lot more people than we know. It says here, an alignment of the sun and major planets wobbles the earth, bringing worldwide tidal waves, earthquakes, and the sinking of huge land masses. Atmospheric pollution causes a planet-wide housing effect, melting the Arctic ice cap, flooding the earth. All these things mentioned in this 1981 book. So I guess at some point, even teaching this stuff in the classrooms from kindergarten up, you would probably get a good portion of the population believing this, willing to accept a global world order, fulfillment of prophecy with an antichrist entity, and who was completely opposed to Christianity, God's laws, bringing us this decadent society we see, transgenderism and pansexualism. It's readily available for anybody to see. Atomic destruction of the ozone layer heralds a burnout of the living and growing things. Meanwhile, like today and yesterday here in the mountains of North Carolina, they've been dumping so much chemicals that's almost frightening. I mean, you get used to watching it and you go, oh, well, what can I do? But they've been doing it so much, even at nighttime I go out and I can see the clear streams of these dumped chemicals. They're getting much more aggressive right now. And there's a lot of alarms out there about an EMP, electromagnetic pulse, and the electric grid going down, and preparations for global world order, and all those newscasters on your nightly news and so many other people saying that the deniers of global warming are part of the problem. So I suppose the citizens of the world will believe that, and the few of us who are awake, we will become the victims of the riotous, insane, zombie-like people running through the streets screaming. Those haters, those Christians, those people who are awake, they're responsible for the problems. They don't want to go along with a global world order and advanced technology so we can program their brains and microwave them and monitor them and control them. And if there's too many people, you know, let's kill off a few people we don't really need. And this is but the beginning of the end. The most sophisticated computers and the dark prophecies of the past point to some terrible target, Doomsday 1999. So in 1981, this author writes this book, and the world did not end in 1999, nor 2000, nor 1982 with the alignment of the planets, nor 2012, nor 2010 and 11 with Comet Ison and Comet Ellen, and every year another threat of the pole shift and global warming, so on and so on and so on and so on. All right, after all that, time to read a little bit from the book and talk about it. The atomic bomb that exploded 8,000 years ago. In Pakistan, in what used to be the Indus Valley of India, there are ruins of several ancient cities that are credited with having contained within their immense areas populations of well over 1 million each. The largest are now called the Mohadudoro or the Hapara, although we have no idea what their names were when they flourished. So over there in Pakistan, which used to be India, there were numerous cities with a population of 1 million each. Apparently, both of these cities was destroyed suddenly. Excavations down to the street level have revealed scattered skeletons, as if doom had come so swiftly that the inhabitants did not have time to get to their houses. 8,000 years ago, Pakistan, millions of people wiped out, apparently overnight. The skeletons, after thousands of years, are still among the most radioactive that have ever been found and on par with those of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So, if there are secret societies, and if this guy actually went down into the earth and found an advanced race, the coming race in the hollow earth, and apparently, according to this, I was reading the book, The Coming Race. The reason years ago, this race that lives in the hollow earth, according to this book, Edward Buller Linton, in 1891 or something, this book was written, one of his books. But apparently they went underground because of some huge catastrophe into the cavities of the earth. So, and we have all these secret societies controlled by some kind of invisible beings, gods, reptilians, whatever you want to call them. Could they have been around, and are they around on planet Earth? Could they have been here all along? Are they still here? And are they really believing there's too many people? Have they created all this propaganda so that we humans will have some kind of believability in whatever happens? It's all some kind of predictive programming, some kind of propaganda. And with all the advanced technologies, it looks like they could pull it off. Charles Berlitz, Doomsday, with collaboration, maps, and drawings by Manson Valentine. (1981). I like what it says here. This is crazy. To the world of the future, if there is one. Wow. Contents. You can get this book. Doomsday, 1999. Doomsday, December 31st, 999. Did you know about that one? 999, 1,000 years ago. Ancient prophecies, and the world ends in 2000. Countdown to doom. Menace from the Cosmo. Pandora's box. Planet, our time bomb. Has the world ended before the drowning of the world? The impossible artifact from the great flood, the arcs of the future. So apparently, I'll tell you the short story. In 1999, not 1999, in 999, so the next day, it would have been year 1000. Not like what we experienced with 2000. But anyways, the day before 1000, months, year earlier, all the people all over the known world, Europe, everywhere, the Vatican, Asia, everybody believed the end of the world was imminent. They were all preparing, giving away all their cattle and money and abandoning their jobs and their houses. 999. Did you know that? Crazy. So good thing it wasn't that bad in the year 2000. But apparently what went on in Europe back then was quite insane. Apparently, even letting all their servants go and horses and cows and setting everything free. Doing kind things to people so when they left the planet, they would find a better place in heaven. 999, the day before 1000. So anyways, page 11. The end of the world, whether by flood, fire, freezing, or cosmic collision, or other catastrophic manifestations, has always had a grim fascination for prophets of doom and also for the general population. So I guess a lot of people, elites who control our planet, understand human behavior. The makers of such predictions are of several varieties. They are religious prophets of warning, mystic prophets, basically a variant of the former, or seers, psychics, mediums, who seem to dream inadvertently of future events without living to see their prophecies fulfilled. Then there are the scientific interpretations of trends and likely possibilities of doom, who frequently indicate, supported by the evidence of astronomy, geology, meteorology, even economics, and even more complete destruction than many of the prophets and visions from the past. Well, so you got a whole lot of people competing to freak everybody out. The end is coming. The scientific prophets of today foresee the pillaging and eventual destruction of the Earth's potential through uncontrolled industrialization, general famine resulting from overpopulation, a food distribution breakdown, disastrous climatic variations, flooding through the hothouse effect of excessive carbon dioxide in the upper atmospheric layers. All this according to this guy in 1981. 40 years later, we're still buying it. Hook, line, and sinker. You'd think we would wake up, wouldn't you? Anyways, so they were talking about excessive carbon dioxide 40 years ago. Upper atmospheric layers, poisoning of the oceans. Wonder if they foresaw Fukushima. Or was Fukushima planned? Are they really destroying our planet? And that's what it appears like they're doing, especially dumping all those heavy metals and biologicals into the air, testing all those biological weapons and flu viruses and vaccinations with mercury, toxins in the food, genetically modified foods, and radiations from microwaves, bringing about diabetes and cancer and eyesight loss and so much more, deterioration of our bones. I would say the truth is we are under attack. But they want us to believe it's some kind of natural event. It's happened before, it's going to happen again. Poisoning the oceans, destruction of the sea's ability to renew life. These threats to survive are generally conceded to become acute toward the end of the second millennium of our era, the year 2000 AD. Personally, I believed they thought they could pull it off on 2000, but apparently, you know, there's a lot of people here in the United States and the world, and they just couldn't get the whole thing going by then. Now they're saying 2020 or 2025. And apparently they are installing a lot of advanced technologies everywhere, readying for this eventual event. Even coffins in fields all across America. All kinds of FEMA camps set up, and so much more. The 2015 Jade Helm exercises with troops going door to door, practicing for martial law, and testing artificial intelligence software. So it'll be computers that makes the decisions on who's the red dot to be killed immediately. The yellow dot, internment camp or maybe a slave factory or slave farm. And the green dot, the people who will join the synagogue of Satan. Like on the internet, they have a website called The Joy of Satan. We see a lot of people are going in that direction. Page 12. There are, understandably, a great number of thoughtful people in the general population who fatalistically expect a possible doomsday from the results of thermonuclear war, with the added possibility of a self-generating chain reaction, which, in the opinion of some words are hard for me to say, theoretical scientists, might possible turn the Earth into a temporary, though short-lived sun. You know what's even crazier to think about right now, 2019, February 6th, is to just ponder for a minute that our leaders worldwide, China, France, Britain, America, etc., Pakistan, whoever, they have exploded 4,000 nukes on this planet since World War II. 4,000. Some of them in the ocean, some of them in the atmosphere, on top of the ground, in the ground. So what do you suppose those 4,000 nukes did to the planet? And they blame us for too much CO2. It's all baloney. These people are seriously evil. There is a synagogue of Satan, so it appears, demonic reptilian beings. Insane. Maybe it is a planet, prison planet Earth. These ever-present eventualities, while they may or may not cause the world to end, have nevertheless contributed literally to the increasing neurosis of human beings. And I've already said that some of those nuclear explosions in Nevada and out west, a lot of that radiation swept across the United States and killed untold thousands of people. And even now with the nuclear power plants everywhere, they leak quite often. And you can go on the internet, they have websites with nuclear radiation detectors. And you can see many times that they are at evacuation levels. But do you ever get warned when it might be happening in Ohio or Massachusetts or Iowa or Texas? They don't tell us at all when this happens. And it happens quite often. So no wonder we could have a neurosis. People could be getting ill and not knowing why on a daily basis. And not to mention all that stuff they're dumping out of those jet planes, aluminum, barium, and strontium. And I've been pondering in my mind, I think of things and wonder, they are having a trouble of getting rid of nuclear waste. Would they reduce that nuclear waste to powder? And would they be dumping it in the sky? They were launching all those rocket shells in Iraq, which were depleted uranium. So what kind of sinister, evil forces are on this planet that seem to want to kill us all and have stolen trillions, 40 trillion, 30 trillion from the Pentagon, and I'm sure the banking systems from all over the world, building underground facilities and preparations for this. So it just seems to me they've gone a long ways to get there. And I don't think you travel that far and work that hard and steal that much money not to finish what they're doing. And I'm not really trying to promote fear. I believe in God. I believe I'm a spiritual being. And all this is sort of prophesized anyways. And even the Bible, God says to not have any fear, to almost look at it as an outsider. You can be amused by what they're going to do to each other. And the ones who are protected are the believers in God and believers in Jesus, etc. And that's why they're trying to destroy the believers in God and the believers in Jesus. They know the spiritual world exists, but apparently it's some kind of harvest for souls. These evil entities want your soul. They want my soul. So they have to use this deception and want people to trust them, like the book from Iron Mountain, the report from Iron Mountain. And so people will take the microchip and take the enslavement. All right, so it says here, this neurosis may explain the turning of a basically moralistic society into a hedonistic and increasingly violent and satanic, I'm going to add, society acceptable for many individuals but not valid in the long run, as the example of the decay and disappearance of the Roman world empire can brilliantly attest. So it's happened before, will it happen again? And apparently, with that picture of a coin with Donald Trump's head on it and King Cyrus and King Solomon's temple, the Jewish elite, the Sanhedrin, the one that sent a letter to President Donald Trump recently, trying to have him have the United States enforce legislation for the Noahide laws, and also trying to get the legislator to make it illegal for people to talk negatively about Zionism or the Jewish people or Israel. And apparently all that is already in force in Europe. Did you know that? Those people can't have the freedom of speech I'm having in this video. And apparently it's even a little more sinister than that. If you can't shut somebody up legally, apparently they have assassination squads. And there's been many accusations in the past 10 years or 20 years of all kinds of biologists and medical professionals and banksters and scientists, the Star Wars scientists. A lot of people conveniently died en masse many times. Even during Barack Obama's presidency, a lot of our leading majors and generals and all the militaries were let go. Somebody's taken over. I wonder who's in control of all those nuclear submarines and all those military bases. Even Ronald Reagan, President Ronald Reagan, at one point fired all the air traffic controllers at the beginning of the Sky Spraying program. So I always thought that was kind of convenient, you think. And even President Ronald Reagan said, they'll never work in this industry again. Now, when have we ever seen that happen? All those air traffic controllers taken off the job and their own people put in charge at the beginning of the dumping of chemicals in the sky, and so much more. And we the people are blind and oblivious to most of it. As nation after nation develops its own nuclear warfare capabilities in the sort of international contest of self-esteem, it is evident that within the next 15 to 20 years, all industrial and developing countries, as well as all developing countries which are striving and being helped to become developed as soon as possible, will doubtless have their own nuclear weapons. And it's been going on since 1981. Even Israel has nuclear weapons, Pakistan, China, everybody. Selling them on the black market after the collapse of Russia. You think all that was a coincidence yet again? Apparently they tried to sell them to Iran, but Iran refused, according to my research. And with the testing of such weapons, the poisoning of the planet will be hastened, even if war does not come. So they're certainly doing that. Do you suppose those 4,000 nukes that exploded in the air, in the ground, in the oceans, and everywhere could have any effect on the weather, people's health, the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry? Never mind the 30, 40 trillion they've stolen and all the presidents they've assassinated and the lives they've ruined of people all over the world. Just saying. And as a potential man-made dooms were not enough, there is an increasing possibility that the Earth, as it approaches the second millennium of our era. So what is really the threat? The year 2000, another millennium, or the age of Aquarius leaving the age of Pisces? What is it? Seems like they have a lot of rabbits in those hats. Fear-mongering. Let's pull another rabbit fear-mongering out of the hat. And another one, and another one. It's terrorism, it's biological, it's global warming, it's pole shift. It's those evil Christians. They're getting in the way of pansexuality, those nasty haters. And of course they have the TV program Zombies and all the people depicted as zombies. Even during the Super Bowl halftime show, they had an incoming comet. They give us the symbolism. There was a lot of satanic symbolism in the last Super Bowl show. If you didn't see it, there's plenty of videos about it. And of course, they've been doing it for Super Bowl halftime show for the past 10 years, since 2001. And Emmys and Grammys and tunnel openings and Eurovision, American Idol program, the All-Seeing Eye, the statue of the Baphomet, the devil in Arkansas, Oklahoma, Detroit, Goddess of Destruction, Shiva projected on the Empire State Building, a gigantic goat projected on the Hoover Dam, the rainbow colors all over bridges and buildings after the Supreme Court banned states from banning gay marriage. Noahide laws, coming Antichrist, all this fear-mongering. 1981 book, Doomsday. And I've got more books on this. They're quite a collection. Like I said, I got a lot more books to go over on these topics. Here's one that was interesting I purchased recently. The General's Son, A Journey of the Israeli and Palestine. So the General's Son tells all. These people plan on a greater Israel and apparently are involved in the global world order. Here's another one. The Invention of the Land of Israel, from Holy Land to the Homeland. They brought the drugs to America. Here's an old book. Unmasking a Vicious Racket, Dope Inc. When was this published? 25 cents. 1953. Dope Inc. Look at this lady. I guess people don't reject it these days. They're legalizing it. People don't even know what's going on. Earth in Upheaval. Another one. A vivid documentation of cataclysmic evolution. Author of Worlds in Collision. We got to read this and make a video on that. Another one by Charles Berlitz, the book I'm going over now. Without a Trace, More Evidence from the Bermuda Triangle. I've got a lot of books. Got 1,000 of them in my office here, probably, that I haven't made videos on yet. Many of them I have read and I am reading. But back to this book. And as if the potential man-made dooms were not enough, there is an increasing possibility that the Earth, as it approaches the second millennium of our era, may experience a wandering of its magnetic poles. So far away from the rotational poles, the southern magnetic pole is even now rushing with increased velocity into the Indian Ocean, and that it could cause a shifting of the poles and a reversal of the magnetic fields of the Earth with a catastrophic consequence. In addition, the tides of the second inner layer of the Earth's crust and the magma of the atmosphere may be affected in 1982, it says in this book, when the greater planets Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and our own sun and moon come into direct alignment with the Earth. It is now considered by certain astronomers that this alignment of the planets may cause the magma level to pile up within the crust and change the balance of the world, causing a wobble, which would mean that the Earth would undergo major geological changes. See, do you suppose all this fear-mongering promoted or encouraged the politicians and world elites to steal trillions from the Pentagon and build underground facilities? Were they tricked by some anti-Christian elites, some kind of demon beings promoting this anti-Christ being and a new age religion, demonizing the rest of us, trying to change our paradigm and social conditioning to make everybody accept this new age? These changes would mean huge tidal waves, tempest with wind speeds of hundreds of miles per hour, earthquakes of intensity far beyond the Richter scale, the sinking of islands, coastal areas, low-lying islands areas, and the raising of the sea level of sections of the ocean floor. 1981. For 40 years they've been feeding us this stuff. And a lot of people have made life changes. And of course a lot of things have happened that they made happen. Project Bluebeam. Apparently they have advanced technologies that they'll make everybody believe what is happening when it happens with all these advanced technologies, mesmerization and holographic technologies. We will all believe that something is happening when that may not be what's really happening. An EMP, they might just shut off all the electric everywhere, or create a bunch of small EMPs with all those microwave transmitters everywhere, taking down all the radio stations and everything else. Everybody will believe it's a EMP. But one EMP can't take out the United States. They only go so far in the pulse radius, like throwing a rock in the pond and the waves span out. So they would have to do a lot of EMPs, but with a lot of intentional blasts from a bunch of transmitters everywhere, they probably could do it. Smaller nuclear devices everywhere, like they probably used in 9/11 on the Twin Towers. Those of us who witnessed such manifestations would in effect feel that the end of our world had come, a feeling doubtlessly shared by many in the distant past when the Great Flood, of which catastrophic the deluge may have been only one aspect. So apparently we had a great flood, Noah's flood, and apparently there are reports from indigenous tribes all over the world that there certainly was a worldwide flood. And again, I believe there have been planet-wide catastrophes. I mean, look at the mountain ranges everywhere you go. The Rocky Mountains, Appalachian Mountains, all over the world, and the huge craters and all that. But again, I'm wondering, if this is a flat Earth that's endless all around, are there other beings with advanced technologies, missiles or whatever, who could bring it about and make us all think it's something happening to the planet when we may not be on a planet after all? Are we in some kind of prison bubble, like the pictures in the Rosicrucian books show us? They even had a show like that on Lost in Space, where they had to get outside the bubble, some kind of time dimension. Just using my brain and thinking, and reading this book, published in 1981. I guess I should be thankful I didn't find out about this stuff in 1981. I would have added 20 more years to my research. But it certainly does appear they are planning something. They are in control of our governments and politicians, and preparations are being made for a global world order, convincing people of climate change and sustainability and droughts and toxins and bees dying and fish dying and people getting sick. There is a plan. It's not a conspiracy theory. It is a plan, and it is in effect, and it kind of aligns with biblical prophecy involving some synagogue of Satan, and even some popular website called The Joy of Satan, telling people that the devil's really the good guy. It's God who's the bad guy. And you know what? A lot of people are buying it. As bizarre as that is, but I suppose if you're on drugs and being hypnotized, mesmerized by the boob tube and so much more, I guess you would believe anything. Although 1982, the year in which these planets will be aligned, so this author wrote this book in 1981, so it was only a year later that all these planets were supposed to align. It is still a year away. Some of these changes may have already started. The Earth's weather, either caused by sunspots or the beginning of a change in the magnetic field, has become increasingly erratic and intense. So think about the things they prophesize or predict today in this book from 1981. The Great Sahul drought, famine in Africa, has been the worst in hundreds of years. The rising and falling of water levels and coastlines in different parts of the world, the melting of the Arctic ice cap. Saying that in this book published in 1981. The rapid building of ice in Antarctica continent, and the increase in the number of and rating of the Richter scale of earthquakes within the last few years in Alaska. So they've been saying this for 40 years. Will we all live on the edge for the next 40 years believing this stuff? And of course it doesn't matter anyways. None of us get off planet Earth alive. Might be just wiser believing in God and Jesus and knowing we're going to eventually die, and the more important world is the spiritual world. But they don't want us to know that. Why is that? Is there such a thing as soul snatching? In these other dimensions, heaven or Hades, hell, are they trying to gain control of our souls and have us willingly go along? Because I guess you have to give away your soul. So they have all these earthquakes in Alaska, Iran, Turkey, China, Peru, Morocco. An impressive seismic occurrence is expected almost momentarily along the San Andreas Fault in California, are impressive warnings for those who will heed them. Not only the number, but also the intensity of earthquakes seems to be increasing throughout the world in a sort of geometric progression, even as seismologists perfect new methods to foretell them. So far, seismologists have yet to improve on earthquake detection, methods apparently inherent in animals. When Russian bears leave their Siberian forest in a hurry, observers know from experience that an earthquake is sure to follow. So apparently in Siberia, in Russia, the polar bears, Russian bears, started evacuating the area prior to an earthquake. You suppose they could sense the tremors? Wouldn't surprise me. Animals are much more sensitive than we humans, so it seems. There may also be more danger from space itself, that an occasional falling Skylab or space station. Wow, this author's doing a great job, you think? Let's be afraid of everything. The Earth is pitted with enormous craters caused by meteorite impact, some of them on the sea bottom, other ones covered over and partly obscured by growth and sediments, while others are strikingly evident, such as the meteorite crater in Arizona. And I went to that crater in Arizona off Highway 40 when I drove back and forth to Santa Fe from the mountains of North Carolina 2 times in 2012. They got a nice little classroom on the top of the crater, and you can look down there and see it. And some samples of the meteorite in the museum. What's interesting is from Highway 40, when you turn off the road to go to the crater, all along the fields are ripples. About a mile long. And the closer you get to the crater, the closer the ripples are. Like if you throw a big bowling ball into the ground or the sand, it'll leave some ripples. Apparently it caused a huge vibration in the ground. Other bombs from outer space have left large lakes in Canada, like Clearwater Lake, a whole depressed area in Central Europe, the Rise-Crusoe crater, and it has been theorized a crater which filled with water became the Hudson Bay. There is also a circular area of the western Atlantic, south of Bermuda, which may have received a tremendous cosmic bolide tentatively dated at the alleged time of the disappearance of the lost Atlantis. So again, to me, it's quite obvious there have been huge disturbances all over the planet. Anybody can get in their vehicle and go drive into the mountains and see that those mountains didn't just rise up, they were tossed up. You can see the shale and all that. The sentiment is not this way. It didn't settle that way and come up. So they're all like this, and like this, and like this. So something does cause disturbances on Earth. I believe that. And I don't believe there's anything we can do about it. And if our government had any value to we people at all, they wouldn't be providing all this propaganda. They would have some kind of safeguards and preparations and be protecting us. But then again, they're publishing books like The Population Bomb, and I showed you Overpopulation, and even the Georgia USA Guidestones saying they want 500 million people on planet Earth, not 6 billion, and bringing us world wars and 9/11 and so many presidential assassinations and destructions of so many nations, like even Venezuela today, a country that apparently has more gold than any other country on the planet, more oil than any other country on the planet, but the elites don't control it, so they have some kind of embargo. It was in the newspaper the other day on Venezuela, but they don't tell you that in the news when you're watching all the devastation and starvation in Venezuela and the protests and the riots. They don't tell you it's because the elites don't control the country. And apparently here in the USA, they have complete control over our country. They even give us two crazy choices for president in 2016. Who doesn't think so? Out of all the people in the United States, you couldn't find two more better candidates for president. While the Earth's atmosphere had provided a stronger shield against these voyagers from space than that of the moon or Mars, a certain amount have slipped past. Earth's protective guard to leave great scars, perhaps when big enough to cause the shaking of the Earth upon its axis. Coincidentally, with the possible catastrophe by 2000, so now this author wrote this book in 1981. They're worried about the 1982 planetary alignments. Now he's talking about the year 2000. There exists a planetoid called Toro, T-O-R-O, Toro, some 5 kilometers in diameter, which orbits between Earth and Venus, making a loop every 5 orbits. While there is no danger to the Earth from Toro in its present orbit, a gravitational pull occasioned by the lining up of several planets and the Sun might capture Toro within the Earth's field of gravity, a situation having results perhaps similar to those caused by strikings of the Earth by cosmic planetoids or enormous meteorites in the past. Such an alignment of the Earth, the Sun, and the greater planets will take place in 1982. Now think about this. 1981 book. Think about World War I. Planned. Executed. The Ottoman Empire in Turkey, all but destroyed. The Zionists have been trying to get the Palestinians land for 300 years to fulfill biblical prophecies. But after World War I, the British wouldn't go along with the Balfour Agreement. So they had to have World War II. Again, more countries were destroyed. Turkey and more controls of the Middle East were destroyed. Finally, they got their gloves onto the Palestinians' land. The League of Nations created between World War I and World War II, those people didn't have apparently the guts to do what the Zionist and Illuminati secret society synagogue of Satan controllers told them to do. So they dismantled the League of Nations, and after World War II, they had the United Nations. Apparently, they have better control over that because they've been getting everything they want from that. But they have us believe that they hate the United Nations. They convinced the American people that Obama hated Israel. When I think during Obama's administration, he allocated more donations to Israel from the Federal Reserve than any other president have ever done. He continued all the activities from President George Bush on bombing and destroying all those countries. And then after President Donald Trump took office, he continued the same thing, launching the mother of all bombs at Afghanistan, 89 missiles at Syria, declaring that Jerusalem was recognized as the capital of Israel, getting his picture on a coin. And then, of course, the Sanhedrin is sending a letter to him saying that the United States needs to enhance the Noahide laws, and to the legislator of America that we need to start passing legislation to make it illegal, a crime, to talk about Israel, Zionism, and Jewish people. And of course, they'll call it a hate crime, but they prepared for this. People won't know why all those preparations were made, all those false flags, all those hate crimes, all those hate laws. It's all a plan. I'm convinced of that, without a doubt. All right, page 14 on the bottom. A curious and somewhat disquieting coincidence is becoming increasingly evident as the 20th century, or second millennium, draws to a close. So we're looking ahead at the year 2000. Another millennium. And then wait a minute. We're looking ahead to a different age, astrologically speaking. The age of Aquarius. So what is it? The millenniums don't line up with the astrological signs, the precession of the planet. And heck, the year 2000 is only since the birth date of Jesus Christ. The Jewish calendar is like 5,732 or something. The Indian and Chinese calendars go back 8,000 or 9,000 years. So how can they pick these arbitrary dates as dates of huge predictions of doom for the entire planet, whether it's a millennium or an astrological age? And of course, they give us these other stuff with the blood moons and all these other alignments all the time. They're really good at what they do. They keep everybody on the edge of their seat while, meanwhile, they are doing things. But it's the old trick, you know. Have everybody looking over here when you don't see this hand turned over. Doing one thing when you don't want people to be seeing what you're really doing. Like destroying all those countries in the Middle East and bombing all those buildings. If you go on Yahoo image site and just put in there bombed buildings in the Middle East, see all those towns and cities and countries. I said countries. Everything has been bombed to smithereens. It's all an intentional erasure of all those towns and cities and peoples. And then if you look up Greater Israel on Yahoo image site, you'll see the boundaries, and look up ancient Judea and you'll see that they match, and it's part of prophecy. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes or a rocket scientist to see what is really going on here. This coincidence, this millennium drawing to a close, rooted in both the distant and recent past, ties in with the prophecies of hundreds of even thousands of years, with the cosmic theories and scientific realities of the present. Prophecies of the world's end by fire, ice, water, and explosion. Although made in different ages and by different cultures during the past 6,000 years, seems to agree that the age of doom is fairly close at hand. That is, towards the end of our second millennium, by whatever calendar or zodiac calculation used by the prophets. And again, I'll tell anybody who has any kind of thinking of fear, don't have any fear. We're spiritual beings. Look at all this with amusement. Don't buy into their propaganda. If something devastation is going to happen, some worldwide catastrophe, there's nothing we can do. If they want to kill us and launch those nuclear rockets, there's nothing we can do. But when we wind up on the other side of the veil, in the spiritual reality where we came from, we can stand up and said, we saw what was going on. We spoke up. We said something. We didn't buy into their satanic agenda. That's what we can do. And that's what they don't want us to do. I've made plenty of book reviews on books like Rabbi Marvin Anthelman, To Eliminate the Opaque, Your Belief in God. Because they know, just like them using their voodoo magic. I was watching another video by a leading preacher this morning, and he said Kabbalah, which is historically the cultural religion of the Jewish people, he said the Kabbalah is basically voodoo magic. Synagogue of Satan, voodoo magic, alchemy, Talmud, Kabbalah. So that's what we're fighting. Even in the Bible it says we're not fighting against nations and people. We're fighting against something much bigger. Some kind of cosmic battle. Some of the most fearful prophecies from the past are alarmingly close in content and in time location to today's pessimistic scientific forecast. Although the prophets and other centuries, insofar as we know, had no access other than their imagination to scientific developments in what to them was the distant but not unforeseeable future. Well, I think throughout the ages we've all had access to prophetic warnings. Now the question is, like it said in Jeremiah when I made the book review on the Old Testament recently, apparently the Lord spoke to Jeremiah and said, those people who are prophesying in my name were not sent in my name. So if there is a spiritual reality, other dimensions, Hades, hell, the underworld, can those people use telepathy or some kind of mind communication with humans who are practicing their satanic rituals, communicate with them in dreams like Nikolai Tesla said? But is it the truth? So who's trying to create all this confusion and deception on planet Earth? And why? There existed, however, even in antiquity, the great time clock in the night sky, which we still share with our ancestors. This is the zodiac, the great turning wheel of the 12 constellations, making a complete circle every 25,920 years, with each of its 12 constellations in order having ascendancy over the skies of Earth approximately every 2160 years, 2,160 years. Observed and calculated even before the development of writing, which may itself have been a result of the zodiacal influence. This great celestial cosmic calendar signified certain portents of our most distant ancestors who, like many of their descendants, detected its influences in their lives. According to the zoological tradition, the ascendancy of each new sign every 2,000 odd years is accompanied by a catastrophe or otherwise crucial events on the earth. So they're saying every time there was a change in the astrological astronomy sign, leaving the age of Aries and entering the age of Pisces, leaving the age of Pisces, entering the age of Aquarius, this author is saying historically there have been catastrophes on planet Earth during those periods of time. So if it is going to happen, some kind of celestial event because of some kind of cosmic calendar, there's nothing we can do about it. And if we are spiritual beings in these biological bodies, it's not so much what happens to us that's important. It's how we react to what happens to us. So if they do bring about an EMP or martial law or threats of World War III, and will people try to hunker down and take their guns and weapons and kill people who approach, committing mortal sins, damning their souls to Hades, when they could have welcomed the people and fed them the last few morsels or drops of water and earned their way into heaven? I wonder how many people think about that. What's more important? This life, which is temporary, nobody gets off planet Earth alive, or this other world? At the changeover of the Leo to Cancer cycles, the sinking of the great Atlantic islands traditionally took place. The Cancer to Gemini change coincided with the presumed striking of the Earth by a comet or catastrophic arrival of Venus. The appearance of Taurus after Gemini marked the beginning commencement of new civilizations in the ancient East. Taurus to Aries brought a new series of floods and catastrophes, while the Aries to Pisces change coincided with the rise and spread of Christianity. It is of particular interest that early Christianity was first identified by the sign of the fish, an early symbol adopted even before the cross. The age of Aquarius upon us. So is it just a cosmic change in reality, or are there some forces intentionally behind it? Whether they are terrestrial or non-terrestrial, or even inside the Earth, or elites that have been here all the time with advanced technologies, continuing to try to keep the human race in the dark. As we pass the cosmic border from Pisces to Aquarius in our own tumultuous age, has been foreseen as one of the materialistic degeneration and maximum destruction, especially at its beginning, which is now. This general tradition has perhaps been colored by many of the world's ancient as well as by the fairly recent prophets. Nostradamus, the 16th century French prophet, of Jewish descent by the way, abandoned his usual vague and veiled references for the precise date when he stated, "The year 1999, month 7, from the sky shall come a great king of terror." Those of us still alive in 1999 will be able to judge the perceptiveness of Nostradamus' most precisely dated prophecy. Edgar Cayce, perhaps the most famous of modern prophets because of his remarkable record of verification, has sketched in his transcribed dreams a time of imminent future catastrophe for a large part of the earth, the sliding of Japan into the Pacific Ocean, earthquakes that will destroy California, the permanent inundation of coastal cities throughout the world, and a reappearance of new lands and the ancient continents thrust up from the ocean floor. While predicated within our present time frame, the start of this chain of catastrophic events will be recognized by the renewed volcanic activity of Mount Etna, which has already started. 1981. 40 years. Predicted gloom and doom. Apparently preparations being made by the elites, underground facilities, taking trillions, 30, 40 trillion, maybe more, probably more, and to control the world, creating this new age of Aquarius global world order religion. Looks like they are praising Lucifer, even a TV programming Lucifer. The website on the internet, the Joy of Satan organization, all those satanic symbols. Makes you wonder, will the evil forces have 2,000 years to reign on the planet, enslave the population? A lot of questions, but very few reliable answers. But fear is not an option, in my opinion. All right, continuing on. Religious prophecies of the final end of the world or civilization are frequently predicated on other events which will signal their occurrences. The ancient Jewish prophets foretold that Armageddon would occur after a Jewish state had been reestablished. So what do you think about that in this book, 1981? I'll read it again. Religious prophecies of the final end of the world or civilization are frequently predicated on other events, which will signal their occurrence. The ancient Jewish prophets foretold that Armageddon would occur after a Jewish state had been reestablished. Well, that's happened. And President Donald Trump has his head on a coin and has said that the United States recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The United States moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, as well as many other countries apparently moving their embassies. So if all this is predicated on this Armageddon, there you go. These people control the media, the news, the TVs, education system, medical systems, bringing us all this bizarreness, Obamacare, and now no kind of health care, pharmaceutical industries controlling things, passing legislation that nobody can interfere with their distribution of all their drugs and their trillion-dollar enterprises. Oh my. Speaking from several thousand years ago, their voices seem to ring with the assent of today's political commentators as they prophesize in the Old Testament that the final battle and the coming of the Messiah will occur within a generation after the reestablishment of the Jews in the ancient homeland. The final war of general annihilation, according to the biblical prophets, will be occasioned by attacks from peoples living to the north and south of Israel, which will be opposed by Israel and its allies. While we do not know the actual date of these prophecies were made, they antedate the New Testament by at least 1,000 years and perhaps thousands of years. And FYI, there were a lot of prophecies concerning the arrival of Jesus as the Messiah. That was all written and prophesied. And all the things that he said he was going to do or were prophesied that said that he was going to do, he did. 100%. So a lot of people want to say, oh, he wasn't real, he really wasn't born. But people will believe anything. Look at 911. People believe that some guys in caves did that. When later on, you can go look it up, and there's plenty of evidence that it was an inside job to bring about the greater Israel and part of this synagogue of Satan activity. Not just me. Plenty of videos, plenty of people talking about it, plenty of evidence. So apparently there's some kind of spiritual reason that we're supposed to wake up. Everybody's going to have a choice to wake up or not. And then if they do bring about some catastrophe, everybody's going to have a choice to practice what Jesus taught, that we love one another, not destroy one another, or worry about yourself and kill people if they try to approach your house or whatever. And all kinds of other mayhem and catastrophes and disasters and riots all over the planet from people losing their minds. Maybe Earth is a school. We're here to learn something. From other of the world's religions or cosmic theologies come indications of doom whose signals have been taking place within our own. End of Pisces time frame. So apparently other religions, according to this author, I don't know everything. That's why I read and research and make book reviews. I learn as I go. But listen to this. The Tibetan Buddhist prophecies that Tibetan Buddhism would end after the 13th Dalai Lama would be dethroned, and he has been, and the general Buddhist prophecy that Buddhism would last for 2,500 years, a period now ending. Wow, a lot of coincidences here of different religions agreeing to the time frame of the huge changes on Earth, worldwide catastrophes. Both agree that the final world period will be at hand for the coming of the future Buddha or the Maitreya. An unexpected prophetic development occurred in the case of the Islamic prophecy that Islam would last until man set foot on the moon. So Islam is supposed to last until man has set foot on the moon, according to this author. In 1981, I'm sure Charles Berlitz believed they landed on the moon, which would have only been a few years ago in his time frame. A hyperbole signifying an indefinite period by which caused consternation in the conservative Islamic circles when Armstrong and Aldrin finally did so. I do not believe we went to the moon. And there's a lot of logical reasons. One, there wasn't enough room in the Apollo craft for the astronauts to get up and walk around. They were kind of tucked in there. And very small craft. And my question to anybody is, could you get in your car in anywhere on the East Coast, New York, North Carolina, Florida, and drive to California, a gas-powered car now? It's not a trick question. Could you drive from the East Coast to the West Coast, California, on one tank of gas? Rhetorical question. Of course you couldn't. So if it took a 10-story rocket to get the darn craft into orbit, and then they had to speed up to get halfway to the moon, slow down, because it takes as much energy to slow down as it does to speed up, circle the moon, land on the moon, take off from the moon, speed up halfway to Earth, slow down halfway to Earth, enter Earth orbit. Where was the fuel? That's number one. Number two, if the Earth is hurtling around the sun at 66,000 miles an hour, think about that. By the time they left Earth's atmosphere, they would have looked out the window and said, whoa, Earth is flying away. We're not going 66,000 miles an hour. There goes the Earth and the moon. How could they keep up with it? Does the atmosphere extend all the way around to the moon? Is that one? I never heard that in science. And so much more. If you look at the pictures of the Apollo craft, they got cotter pins and aluminum poles and stuff like that. And they went back, they're supposed to have gone to the moon 6 or 7 times, back and forth successfully. And look how many space shuttles blew up. And lastly, they say they can't go back to the moon anymore because they lost all the engineering drawings and designs. Who wants to believe that? 911. Yeah, some Arabs in a cave came over here and had those concrete and steel buildings dissolve into dust. Building 7 never even hit by a plane. Free falls, 42 stories. And the one demolition expert, Denny from Norway, I believe, in a video, when shown Building 7, he said in Norwegian language, of course, that's demolition. And of course, he was dead shortly after, his car going into a huge oak tree, completely destroying it into a small rubble. And so many other people, whistleblowers and people who knew too much, conveniently died. So I do believe there's some reality that there is some insane activities going on planet Earth. And maybe part of our job as human beings, spiritual beings, is waking up and seeing things as it is. It even says in the Bible, people who have eyes and don't see, and who have ears and don't hear. And apparently many of us have hearts but don't feel. We watch all those people in the Middle East be killed and homeless people. How many people stick their necks up and go out there and try to speak up and say something and do something? Too many people just want to ignore everything. Back to this book. Islamic traditionalists, however, have argued that the astronauts did not land on the real moon, the lamp of the night, but on some other heavenly body. Therefore, the prophecy has not been fulfilled, and in any case, Islam seems to be affirmatively flourishing. So Islam, the Middle East, was flourishing in 1981. But they didn't know the secret insider, the elites, were planning 2001, 9/11. And the overthrow of all those countries, as General Wesley Clark said after 9/11. One of the people in the Pentagon told them they were going to destroy Syria, Iran, and all those countries. Part of a rebuilding of the ancient kingdom of Judea, and apparently an anti-Christian effort with the Sanhedrin behind the scenes, influencing President Donald Trump and the legislator in America, trying to get laws passed in this country, making it hate speech to tell the truth, making it hate speech to be not supporting the synagogue of Satan. The pyramidal prophecies, as interpreted by psychic pyramologists, indicate in the turns and measurements of the inner galleries of the Great Pyramid at Giza, Egypt, the end of the world in the year 2001. I didn't know that. So the pyramid, apparently, the indications of the Great Pyramid gave off some kind of indications of the world at 2001, of our era. The decline is said to have started in 1965, which I suspect is probably the beginning of the celestial age of Aquarius. Remember that song? Age of Aquarius? And all that Aquarius-type activities during the hippie ages and drugs and rock and roll and satanic symbols on the albums and so much more. Somebody behind the scenes has been doing some serious propaganda and social conditioning. So 1965, the latter date, a finding with which many economists will doubtless agree. Also, the ancient Aztec age cycles, as well as the probable connected Hopi cycle, age ended, both predict an end of the world at the end of the present age, the son of fire. Hindu tradition, as expressed in the ancient Puranas, also foretells a possible annihilation of the human race at the end of the fourth or the Kali Yuga. And remember, the Kali is the goddess of destruction, the present age now drawing to a close. So the age of destruction, the Kali in India, is drawing to a close. And remember, they put the image of Kali on the Empire State Building, the goddess of destruction. Whatever may be one's scientific theories, cosmological traditions, or religious beliefs, it is nevertheless an unusual coincidence that cataclysmic doom seems to be generally expected by approximately the year 20,000 AD. So now they're predicting 2019 or 2020. Somebody's trying to get the job done. Bring about a global world order, microchipping people, monitoring us, a beast computer, artificial intelligence. Even a robotic commercial during the Super Bowl. Other cultures, while guarding their own religious counts of time, as in the case of the Chinese, Arab, and Jews and others, have generally accepted the Western system of counting years because of the easier common calculations. There seems, nevertheless, to exist a common zodiacal thread, the change of the hour or era of the dominant constellation of our shared cosmic clock every 2,160 years. This may have influenced the inception of Christianity itself, or conversely been signaled by it. It is also perhaps to be expected that humanity may consider that every 1,000-year period will be accompanied by an earth-shaking event. The very word millennium, originally simply a count of 1,000 years, has taken on a meaning alternately of destruction, death, redemption, retribution, and the hope. Towards the arrival of the last millennium, I'm getting over a cold. Towards the arrival of a last millennium, December 31, 999, I mentioned this early in the video, the whole world was up in an uproar on 999, not 1999, 999. Listen to this, crazy. So many people in the Christian lands at that time actually thought that the world was coming to an end that they proceeded to act in an unaccustomed fashion. In their dealings with each other, they became brotherly, so charitable, so filled with self-abnegation and love for their neighbor that the true millennium, however briefly, seemed to be at hand. So all of Europe and the world at that time made huge changes in their thinking and lifestyle, preparing for the end of the world, the year 1000. And we had some similar activities for the year 2000, but nothing like they did in 999, December 31st. It is, of course, regrettable that generally only in moments of impending doom do whole populations tend to forget their own immediate and selfish interest and join together in a brief brotherhood of mutual help and kindness. This is how it was during the month of December 999 AD. So again, I say right now, with all this predicted gloom and doom and obvious activity by the elites to take control of the world with a global world order and monitor and police every one of us to the nth degree with a lot of death and destruction all over the planet, some evil elites, as prophesized. Even though all this seems to be taking place, I think at this particular time, more love needs to come from the heart. More prayers need to come from the heart. And if something does happen, don't freak out. Don't jump in your car. Don't think you're going to flee. You know, if it would be wise to have some water and food on hand, and so you can watch the scenario as it unfolds, because I guess none of us are going to get off of earth alive. We are spiritual beings. So it's more important not what happens to us, but how we react to what happens to us. That we don't join the evil forces in the destruction and chaos and anarchy and mayhem. That we try to be the good guys. Thank you for watching my video. Rick Marrico reporting.